We're going to do a simplifying rational expressions. This is an example of simplifying. The first step is to factor the numerator and the denominator. So I'm going to factor the numerator and the denominator. The numerator is going to factor into y minus 8 and y plus 4. The denominator is going to factor into y minus 9 and y plus 4. Stop the video if you need help factoring and getting those numbers, but those are correct. Step 2 says divide out the common factor. Y plus 4 is common, and so that divides to give me a 1. And then step 3 says just put together what's left over. And so that is what's left over, and that is my answer. Okay, so this time we're going to multiply or divide a rational expression. This one is a divide, and so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the second fraction. It needs to be flipped and possibly factored. Well, when I look closer, it does not need to be factored, but it does need to be flipped. And so I'm going to flip it. If it were factorable, I would be flipping and factoring. The second one, the first fraction does need to be factored. So I'm going to go ahead and factor it. And both of those are difference of squares. That's a 2, not a 4. Hold on. Okay. And then the second step says divide out common factors. Oop, I got that wrong again. Let's get it right. This is 2x minus 5 and 2x plus 5. There we go. All right, so now we're going to divide out our common factors. 2x minus 5 is going to divide out, and so is x minus 2. Those all divide out. Those are 1s. And so my answer is what's left over, which is 2x plus 5 over x plus 2. Okay, so now for this one, we're going to find the common denominator of these two. The first step says to factor all the denominators. So the first denominator factors into m times m plus 2. The second denominator is trinomial, that is a minus 12, and it's going to factor into m minus 6, m plus 2. And so then now my common denominator. To do the common denominator, I take all of the first one. So I need both of those factors. And then I go to the second one and say, well, what else do I need? And I need the m minus 6. I already have an m plus 2. I don't have any numbers, so I don't have to multiply. So step 3, I get to skip. And so that is my final answer. Okay, for this example, we're going to determine the common denominator. Then we're going to change the numerators. Then we're going to combine the numerators. This is an adding of rational expressions. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this, and I'm going to factor my denominators. So that first one factors into y minus 2, y minus 1. And the second one is going to factor into y minus 1, y plus 1. All right, now my common denominator is take all of the first one, take all the factors of the first one, and then look at my second one and see what else I need. I need a y plus 1. Okay, so I've determined the common denominator, and there it is. Second step, change the numerators by multiplying by the missing factor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare those two denominators, and I see that for this one, the y plus 1 is what's missing. So I'm going to multiply my numerator by y plus 1. And then when I compare these, I see that the y minus 2 is what's missing. So I'm going to multiply by my numerator by y minus 2. And that gives me 5y minus 10. Now, technically, this was also done down here, but it's a technicality. Step 3, I'm going to combine my numerators. This time I'm adding, so I'm going to combine my numerators, and I'm going to get 7y minus 8. And my denominator stays the same. And the last step says simplify if needed. It doesn't need simplifying. So this is my final answer.